we've got
£1,000 down.
£1,000 down on in steel. So that's the funding that we set at the beginning of the year, and then the reserves allocation, we had 36,000 from SIL, we had 2023-24, 11,646.79 from the PWLB that we didn't use last year, that we put into reserves to help us with the costs for this year. We didn't do any loans last year, so although we had built it into the budget. And then 2,500, which, if you remember on the previous budget, we allocated shop sort of surplus, if you like, 2,500, that came into this figure here. So the summary of the budget, just to give you an idea, is that's where we are. And if you look at it, income, receipts, transfers from the reserves, and our costs, we come out with a small surplus of 1152. So it's almost a balanced budget, actually. In other words, we set a budget of expenditure, and we have achieved that by the income that we've received, based on the figures we've got at the moment. Obviously, you're right, John, because it was 1152 has already gone down a bit because we overshot the Holly and Steer figures. So that, and there will be some other figures that we haven't yet. You know, when we come to the balancing act at the end of the piece, there'll be a few things here and a few things there. The shop are paying for some things, we're paying for some things. I think it'll all balance out in the end, and I think we won't be far off of a balanced budget, which is remarkable when you think, starting off with that size of budget for a parish council that size, and we come out that close to where we should be.
I think members will remember we had quite a long debate about Paul Martin and whether we would have a project manager, but I think he's obviously shown that we've kept it right on tight and not allowed things to run away with us, which would have been very easy to happen. So none
of us would have been able to do what Paul's done, you know, because he's the expert. You know, just skill he's got. You know, I've seen him with Ashley, and you know, he's very, very thorough.
It's line by line.
So that's basically where we're at on the build budget. And then the only other thing we need to look at is where we are on the cash flow, and that shows us where we are with our reserves. So what I've done simply then, I just bamboozled with a lot of figures. I don't want to do that really, but basically we've got bank reserves up to 31st of October, where I forecast up to 2025, both income and expenditure, working down to our bank reserves that we expect to have at the end of March, when we've done all the shop payments and when we've completed all our other payment payments. And then I've got fixed reserves. These are the things that we need to allocate as a fixed reserve. So if you deduct one from the other, you get about 20,000. So our operating capital is about 20,000. Unless we decide to increase the precinct more and give ourselves a bit more on reserves, in which case that can go up, you know, however we want it to go up.
The retention isn't in there, isn't it?
We won't pay that, of course, will we?
That will need to be added to the
reserve. It will need to be added to the reserve after we've done the build. We'll say, right, okay, the build costs X, and we're going to hold back 5%, and then that will drop into the reserves.
So it'll be 2.5%, because you'll release 2.5% for practical completion. You'll have 2.5% in your reserves.
Yeah.
So again, just for members that are clear, at the end of the build, an amount of money is retained, so that if there's any minor issues that crop up after a period of time, they can be sorted out. That you've got something to go back to the builder with to say, come and sort it out. So that will have to be added to the reserve as well, which is currently.
But you know, we should end up pretty well level really. You know, where we would have expected to end up. I must admit, at the beginning of the year, I was a bit concerned about it. I must admit how it was all going to pan out, because I thought we were going to get a lot more hidden costs that we didn't get in the end.
Have there been any variations on the build project
There's only been some, there have been some minor ones that have in effect offset each other. So, for example, the one that comes to mind is the soakaways and stuff. They had to change slightly. So it was at one point it was going to be all soakaway on green. That had to be changed because the water table wasn't good. So there's now soakaway at the front, but they managed to sort those costs out. So we haven't added to the contract price.
Right, that's good.
Which again is quite an achievement.
Yeah,
That is a good achievement.
considering that when they did the foundations, they didn't know what they were going to
No, it's not. There's only nine. The other thing is the doors, of course. Now the door closures that they put on the shop, I think they cost about 6,500, didn't they? But a donation has come in to pay for those. So of course we will have to pay that cost when it comes to the bottom line, but the donation will cover that as part of a reserve. So we're not paying for it.
So,
But we've got to show it.
And also we've made it clear that for those doors going forward, the shop will be responsible for
All
maintenance
maintenance,
and repairs. That's not coming to us as landlord.
And we will make sure that we'll get that tied up as well with the shop as well, in terms of document, to say that they are undertaking the maintenance of those doors, because, 8, 9, 10 years down the line, we may not all be here.
We covered it also in the contract under repairs and maintenance and dilapidation.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where we are. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
No, well done, Owen. Fantastic achievement to control it all and have it all monitored. So well done.
Well, it's been a challenge.
Thank you.
So I've learned something from it, I must admit. Learned a lot from it, actually.
So when we start the next one next year,
It will seem quite mundane next year when we do a normal budget.
okay.
Okay.
So that's all of the ones under that heading.
Yeah.
Okay. Staff salary you already mentioned.
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
right.
of national
I
agreement.
just need to minute that. That's all.
Yeah. So that's fine. In terms of the shop bill, I think we've covered most of those items as we've been going through. So that's lease, legal. There's nothing to update on that at the moment.
Again, I did speak to Charles Fleming earlier on, actually, this evening, he ran me on the way here, actually.
Yeah.
And he said one of the problems he's had with Adam Burridge at Clark, he's been on holiday for 2 weeks. And he's held on to our documents, even though they're signed, because he wanted to just check with Adam Burridge that everything was okay. He didn't want to just send them off to him. So our solicitor is holding the documents at the moment. He's happy with all the signing, he's happy with it, all the documents are correct. But he wants, before he dates them, he wants to make sure that Clark Wilmot Clark are also happy with the documents.
So do we have a timetable on that, bearing in mind?
He's going to speak to him tomorrow morning. He's back in the office tomorrow morning, apparently. So
Okay.
it is hard work dealing with him, so he won't tell you. And Clark Wilmot Clark, both of them. Neither of them are very easy to deal with. But, we're there more or less on those documents. We've signed them, shop happy with them, so. So that's the these side of things. Any other matters on that?
No. The only thing I was going to mention under other matters was I had if I can just say, I've had on my email an apologies coming from Councillor Matthews.
Okay, right.
So we have our apologies from John. The only thing I was going to mention from my emails that came in today was, you'll remember it's not strictly to do with the bill, but it's the post box, the letterbox that has been obviously removed from the village shop, with the old village shop. We've been trying to sort out the post box, as you know, for down here at the new shop. We were asking for it to go on our land, which would be located close to the shop and easy access. Having gone around the circles numerous times with Royal Mail, they will not allow to do that. They will only put it on publicly adopted highway land. So the place that they have said that they will put it, and they've now accepted that they will put it, is at the front of the ground, more or less where Ronald Frost's bench was. But they wrote to me today confirming that will now go ahead.
34 weeks, they're quoting.
That's what I was going to read out. So it will be completed in circa Actually, it's better than that. It's 28 to 32 weeks.
Oh, well,
So,
I'm just a pessimist. That's it.
so they have accepted at least we will have a box, but it's going to take a little while to get. I mean, they might come through more quickly.
And that's far enough back from the road, because your first concern was we were putting.
Ultimately, they're responsible with the Highways Authority to ensure that it's safe. But as I say, they point blank refused, despite us using our best efforts to try and explain this is public land, it's a local authority land, it's got to be publicly adopted highway. We felt it was, to be frank, I'll say on camera here, I think we felt it was better to get the thing in place, and then if we have to argue about potentially moving it to a better location with them, then we'll do it. Because the danger was they initially said to us we didn't need a box and they weren't going to give us one, because technically any person has to be within half a mile of a post box. We have one at the telephone exchange, we have one at the Fox and Goose. The fact that you've got to cross the A38 to get to the postal letterbox doesn't come into the. So that's the argument we made, and they accepted that they would give us a box. But I was a little bit worried that if I keep pushing it too far, at some point they'll turn around and say, well, actually, you don't need one, so we're not going to do it at all. So at least if we've got the bird in the hand, we can then argue about it later if we have to.
So how many boxes is by the old telephone, or by the telephone exchange?
Currently, until this one goes into place.
You have to have a cardboard box outside with a hole in it.
Okay. The play area upgrades and quotes. Remember at the last meeting we agreed that we were going ahead with the zip wire and the other relocation, subject to two items being confirmed. One was that we got at least £5,000 in SIL money come in. As you've seen, we've now had £6,500 come in. We're currently waiting to hear, and we should hear just before our December meeting, about the other grant that Owen was securing from a charitable trust, which is £2,500, and subject to us obviously getting that, the orders can go in as was agreed at the last meeting. So that is progressing. The safety matter we talked about earlier about, I presume that was relating to the GB Sports report.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Next one is entrance to the car park on the village green, changes in the entrance. Now, what this is you will remember that we've been talking about, as you leave the village green car park, the entrance, the curve to the right-hand side, people constantly drive over it. There is now a very big dip, and we have had people fall over it. So we have filled it previously, and people still drive over it. So we asked for a couple of, we actually asked for 3 quotes. We've had 2 quotes come in to basically take that corner off, leave about 1 metre from the stone as is on the other side, but it would narrow it, and it would then tarmac the entrance would be wider. The quotes we had come in, one was from Ashley Baker's tarmac people who quoted, and they came in with a quote for £1,950 plus VAT. And then we had a second quote which we've received that has come in from Pete Phillips and Sons, who do the tarmacking, and they have quoted for £900 plus VAT, which is £1,080 total. Both of them were interested in quoting on the grounds that both are carrying out works locally, so they would run it with us separate. So if it goes with Ashley's contract, it would be done at the same time as the tarmacking of the path outside the front of the shop. You'll remember at the last meeting there was a report about the sinking outside the parish hall where people were concerned. Well, I think Malcolm, you fell. We were told that you'd had a fall out the front where there's that dip on the corner of the parish hall.
Yeah.
So the parish hall are getting that whole area re-tarmacked. So they let their contract with Pete Phillips. So I think both of them felt that as they were working in the area, they could be competitive with their things. As I say, I had a third company came out and looked at it, but they haven't quoted. So we have the 2 quotes that are in front of us, and basically the options are: do we go with one of these 2, or do we go back and refill it again and hope that?
Can we not just move the big rock that's there? Because people have already hit that once and not going to get on.
They hit the flagpole of the rock.
I mean, the only thing I would say is if we narrow the entrance by, in effect, doing that might impact on things like removal of the porta cabin and potentially lorries on the village green at times of the year. But
is it worth holding fire on filling that in until the porta cabin's gone? Because if there's any damage to the rest of the car park, you might need to. to look at.
All I would say is, if we do, then that won't necessarily happen at the same time as the other work, and therefore the quote might not be the same.
Right.
It's a decision the yes members could delay it, but it's up to you.
And I think that because there are two contractors here, we need to go with one of them and strike while the iron's hot. It's just, we think they're both going to do an adequate job? Well, then it makes sense to go with the cheapest quote. As far as I can see, we'll get the VAT back, won't we?
Yes.
So we should, I
Yes,
propose we go with the cheapest quote,
Yeah, so the.
which was Pete Phillips, wasn't it?
Yes, so Pete Phillips is, if you exclude the VAT to keep both simple, it's £900 for one and it's £1,950 for the other.
Let's go, I propose we go with Pete Phillips.
Okay? Is all those in favour that we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear carried. Thank you.
Condition of rights of way.
That I think
We've covered.
we've covered in the earlier discussion of general condition of the rights of way. Of the Samaritans, I saw there was an update from you earlier.
Yeah,
So you give us a
I've obviously spoken, well, in fact, you know Matthew, don't you, of course, John?
Yeah, it was good about the other day.
I spoke, I had an email from Matthew. Apparently Network Rail have agreed to fund these signs.